I'm Gretchen. If you haven't met me before, in the last 3 years, probably due to COVID, it's been an unbelievable 3 years. All I can say is some of you already feel like family, which I appreciate so much, welcoming a complete stranger into this community. A little bit about me, I worked with Chris I'm sorry, I couldn't speak yesterday. I'd rather pull all my eyelashes out than sit up here today, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I like to do things behind the scene. I don't need to be in front of anyone. I don't need any attention. But I think we have some important work that we've been doing these last 3 years that it was important that I share that with you, because normally Chris would do this. I was in financial services for 12 long, heinous years. It was a wonderful learning experience, and it prepared me. It was a perfect marriage of that background combined with my 13 years at MD Anderson Cancer Center to come and do this job, and this job kind of brought all of my background full circle. All I remember, Chris and I became best friends almost instantaneously. We see kind of things in life through the same lens, which I will so miss. We're all better for knowing him, right? And I hope that everything that we do to make him proud and to make you proud and to continue his legacy. And I promise you, that's all we're gonna do. With that being said, at MD Anderson, I don't know, people go to MD Anderson, they either retire or they die, they don't leave. But Chris was very, very passionate and committed to the KCA from day one. And I remember him always talking about it, and otherwise I wouldn't have even known what the organization was, to be honest. And when the time came for the old CEO to step down, he broached the subject, why don't you think about it? And there was a lot of no, thank you, I appreciate it, no. But there was such an opportunity here. The one thing I realized at MD Anderson was kidney cancer was really lagging behind some of the other disease sites, and I really didn't know why. I hadn't focused any time on figuring that out at the time. And when I started doing research on the organization, it looked more like an asset management company that threw 2 really good conferences. So I was like, that's interesting. They could be doing so much more. And then the more I talked to Chris, and anybody that talks to Chris, just his love of anything is infectious. And I just wanted to be a part of it. And I took a leap of faith because I trusted him implicitly, and I wanted to be a part of whatever meant something to him. And I will say, just on a personal note, which I should have said yesterday, the best thing about Chris was he's the main person, and if he didn't say it to you, he thought it, I promise you. But he's about the only person I've ever met in my entire life that said over and over again, when I finally said I would consider doing this job, that he said, I want you to know, there's no way you can disappoint me. He said, there's nothing you can do to disappoint me. I want you to be happy, and I want this organization to succeed, and I think you'll do it together, but there's nothing you can do to disappoint me. And my last conversation with him a few days ago, all he kept talking about was how afraid he was of disappointing me because he knew he couldn't come to this meeting today. So the irony that this man is so humble that he just had no idea how much he was respected and loved, and that most people stuck it out and kept coming to the same conferences over and over again, mainly for him, because he really believed that together we could do something special, and I think we definitely can. And so, with that being said, and that you're not going to see me a lot, but I will talk to any of you anytime. I will put my cell phone number up. You can call me, and I'm way better one-on-one because I don't like microphones. So what have we been doing? Well, and if this doesn't work, I will kill somebody. Okay, just kidding. So this slide is a little bit of what we've been doing, and if you can't read it, that's because you guys provide slides all day, every day, that I can never read. And I just thought that's what you deserve. So, if you want a copy of it, I'm happy to give it to you. It's not really important. The main reason I showed you this is because we have been unbelievably busy. and not in a busy administrative way, in a very, very strategic way. And though COVID happened, and kind of put a kink in almost everything that everybody was doing, it also gave us some really amazing gems and blessings and efficient ways of doing things and we kept full steam ahead. And we had a board that allowed me to do it. We have a board that we doubled in size and that got behind it and that has tried to learn along the way so that we could do better and we could do more. And so what I hope that you learn today is that these last 3 years, we've gone from being, I feel like we got to come in and now stand on the shoulders of those that came before us to even have the love of the kidney cancer community to formulate this organization 30 years ago. And now I hope what my team will do is propel off of that, because we're perfectly poised to really move the needle now. And it's going to require all of us. So a couple of things. We'll just highlight a few things because the Lord knows you don't need my to-do list. But we completely rebranded ourselves. I don't know if you noticed. The first case, right when I started, I went straight to a KCA meeting, an IKCS meeting. And I kept thinking, what the hell does IKCS stand for? And I didn't see the name KCA anywhere. And I thought, is this our meeting? Is this somebody else's meeting? I'm not sure. But it was well attended, so I'm like, well, okay, people like it. I think that's good. It's a good start. But what we realized is that we need a full overhaul. And so it really genuinely, I said 3 years ago, it's a new day at the KCA, and I think now we can honestly say we are almost a brand new organization. We have the best of both worlds. We have a 30-year history. We have a 30-year history of board members that are still equally as passionate about this mission and vision. We took time to reformulate and restructure the mission and vision so it is more specific, has more actionable items, so that we can make a greater impact. And then we listened. My whole first year here was more of a listen and learning kind of tour, I think, and maybe a little therapy for some of you, for some of the PTSD you had from earlier times. But and we listened to needs not being met and gaps of knowledge and resources. And so some of the big ones that bubbled up, and I won't go through all of them, but one of the biggest ones was we created a patient liaison program and actually hired a patient liaison, because people don't need to go to a website all the time. Half these people may not even have computers, for God's sakes. I mean, it's a little bit older disease most of the time anyway. They don't know where to go. The internet has way too much information, and it's not vetted very well. And so we really want to do a better job of being the connector and the main resource and the trusted resource, both for you, both for our patients, their caregivers, and pharma. And really, it's going to take all of us. And I think everybody, we all care, right? Or we wouldn't all be here. But it seemed we were missing the link that really connected all the dots of all of us, so that each silo of us could come together and make a more significant impact. So I hope that's what we provide to you going forward. If you get nothing else from this other than I absolutely hate being up here, you should get that we are the catalyst and the connector and an extension of you. That's all we're here for. So if there's a need not being met and we're not meeting it either, then tell me. Let's work together. We can do this. We've done so much so fast, and so many of you have played a significant role in that, so I really appreciate the time that you give, because I know none of us have extra time to give, unfortunately. So they have a live human that they can call on that will walk them through any need that they have and hold their hand through the process. Because what I've learned in 13 years of being with patients at every stage of the cancer cycle, it doesn't matter if it's kidney or a breast or anything, they all go through the same thing. And just about every member of my family and friends, and I'm sure you have the same story, has had cancer, unfortunately. And so I've been kind of the patient liaison to my world for years. And I've been there when they were diagnosed, I've been there when they were cured, and I've been there when they were told there was nothing left to do, and everything in between. And I appreciate and I learn from people like like Dina, who has these great surveys, and it gives us this insight into the patient world, but I've lived it. My 13 years have been its own survey. I've been there, I've held their hand, and I know what they're afraid of. And the first thing that we all know, and I hope all of these phrases and words don't go on deaf ears when we leave here because it sounds so trite, but is education, because people don't know what to do at first. They're in shock, and they're scared, and even if they're the smartest people in the room, they don't know what to do, and they're probably listening to their neighbor or their main doctor, which is either a dentist, an orthopedist, or a GP, who they've loved forever, and that's the only people they trust. And that's not right. That's not enough. So many people don't get to the care that they deserve at a place, at a location, at an NCI-designated center, or somebody that is well-respected in this field, even in their community, because they don't know how. And we are going to do a better job of making sure that that information is available for everybody. And we need you to help us with that. I mean, the patients, you see the patients, but to be really honest, by the time they get to you, it's almost too late. Somebody else has already touched them, or multiple people. And maybe they've made it to where they did the wrong thing at first, which I see all the time, and then now they can't even do a clinical trial because somebody has messed that up for them because they did not refer them on. So that is the hugest passion for me because it's the biggest barrier I have found so far. And I don't know the answer yet, but hopefully together we'll figure that out. And then the other thing is financial. We get a lot of financial toxicity. Even if they know who to go to and where to go, they can't always afford it. They don't have the support system. They can't leave work. They can't pay for the hotels and meals. So we created a patient assistance fund so that we can start providing these ancillary dollars to people, things that insurance just doesn't cover. And hopefully that will get more patients in your hands, the thought leaders. We created a Just Diagnosed toolkit because we figured that every appointment I've ever been to, these patients are scared to death of you. They have so much respect and so much awe for you, and you are super busy. And some of you do a really good job of not making them know how busy you are, but not all of you do. And and they get in there and if they do have questions, first they don't know what to ask. And then if they do, they get in there and much like me up here today, they just start babbling and they don't want to take up your time. And they forget. And they forget to write it down, and they forget to, and then you absolutely have to have another person in there because you need 2 or 3 ears to hear the same words to know what in the hell was just said to you. So when you do come to, and you can think about it more clearly, then you can, and so I tell everybody, record your meetings with your doctors and go back. But what this Just Diagnosed toolkit hopefully will do is it gives them a sheet to take with them, with the questions. And I mean, even Dr. Tanier told us, not too long ago that he's been seeing this patient forever. And one day this patient finally got a hold of our Just Diagnosed toolkit, and he wasn't just diagnosed anymore, but he took the list of questions with him, and he had a very in-depth conversation with Dr. Tanier. And Dr. Tanier said, all it took was this one piece of paper for you to have this conversation with me, because you can't guess what these patients know or don't know, and how much they want to hear and don't want to hear. I mean, it's a guessing game for everybody. So we wanted to give some guidelines for people to follow to make these conversations more meaningful when they come to you. We create an ambassador program so that we can have boots on the ground and people that are helping spread the word, get the information out, give the resources and support in their own communities. And we hope to expand that in a really big way. We increased our grant funding. I hope you've noticed that a little bit. And we have intentions of continuing to do that expansion. We've told lots of patient stories, of course, and created even our own council and support group for people. I mean, there's so much need out there, and they're so hungry for information. And we haven't been doing a good job at that, and I'm sorry. And we are now, and I hope that you take a few minutes to learn a little bit more from beyond what I say today, what it looks like and how your patients can use it. That's Rosemary. You'll meet her later. Yep. You know, you can just call me if you want a toolkit, if we haven't already mailed you one. We've created, so the virtual world has really helped us, both with you all, for those that, there's some of you I've seen 3 years in a row now, but there's people that have never been able, they don't have a travel budget to go to a conference. There's community doctors, those are the first people that most of these people see anyway, giving either bad information, wrong information, or not even knowing what their resources are. So we're gonna do a better job of that, and I think this virtual component, because of COVID, will allow us to do that. We had a virtual patient symposium, and I can't believe how many people just, they didn't even want to get off the call. Like, it was so amazing. They were so inspiring. They just made us want to do more because they were hungry for knowledge. So we want to do that for patient population, but we also want to do that in the medical community as well, so that we can touch more of these community doctors and hopefully do a better job of providing care for the underserved. We have a nutrition assistant. No, I'm sure nobody's listening to them. Our grandmothers have told us forever, just eat right, exercise, don't smoke, don't drink. Okay. You all have been in our patient library videos forever. We've rebranded our website. We've hopefully made it a lot more accessible. And the KCA Connect is the support group that we have created. And then we tried to, you know, the Dina Battles of the world and the Brian Lewises of the world that have been advocating for years have done such an amazing job. We've been a part of some of that in a little bit lesser active role, but certainly been a part of it. But it didn't ever come across as everybody was talking with one voice in the kidney space. And so Carolyn Best was so kind at the AUA to let us come together in a place where all the kidney groups could create our own alliance, and which we named the Kidney Cancer Impact Alliance, and come to the table as one voice. This community's too small for us to be segmented. If we don't do this together, it's just not going to work. And so that's really been amazing, and I think there's a lot of things other than just money that we can start advocating for, whether it's clinical trial development, drug development, that will help us achieve some of these underserved goals that we all have, and be more patient-centric. Just one of our award winners. I wish Tony was here, but if some of you are here, I see Pavlos. I can't really see anything else, but please come and see me. We also heard we get so many applications that most of them were drug-related, but there was this constant theme and need for psychosocial and mental support. And so we heard you, and we created a focus award that can change as the need changes. But as of right now, psychosocial was front of mind. It's the first year we've awarded it, and it went to Dr. Bergeron, and we could not be more thrilled about what the impact of this will be, so stay tuned. We have a data federation. You don't want to hear this from me. You really need to hear this from our medical director, because I'm going to mess this up. This is my baby. We created a think tank because I kept asking the question, it's taken us all this time to finally have, a dozen drugs that we can finally use in the kidney space. But what's really moving the needle? Like, what are we going to do to move it? What is it going to take? And I've worked at MD Anderson long enough to know that the silo effect and the politics are really hard to make great strides in a timely fashion. But I know I've seen this group, and everybody is so passionate that I feel like if somebody that was a more of neutral ground could help spearhead this, because we have more time and you don't, then maybe we could do the impossible. Because how many ways have you told me it's going to be a lot, it's going to be a lot, it's going to be hard work, this is going to be impossible? And I say this all the time, they tell me not to, but like Dumb and Dumber, I'm like, so you're saying there's a chance? And so if there's a chance, I'm like a dog with a bone, and I've probably called you like 1,000 times at this point, but we're going to do it. We have just the most brilliant of people behind this effort, and projects that come up, bubble up through these think tank sessions. And these think tank members roll out. This isn't just like our MSC committee or whatever. There's not a tenure. We just get different people in different stages. Different people has helped us. So stay tuned, because you may be helping us one day too. And try to get deliverables and real projects that we can put some money behind, we can put some focus behind, and we can put some manpower behind to implement, to bring all of the data together to be more useful for you all, because we keep hearing the same themes over and over again of what is missing. So we are really close to getting this off the ground in the first 1 or 2 institutions. And then once that gets started, then all we're going to do is just keep adding institutions so that that data is available for everybody and more robust. So stay tuned. God help us. We're hoping we're all going to be in Europe for what used to be called IKCS. We've rebranded this. I'm still going to call it IKCS, I'm sure, just like you are. But the reason being is because, one, it was totally redundant and stupid. But IKCS North America is here. IKCS Europe is there. And one day, we do have aspirations of IKCS Asia and IKCS Latin America. And there's so much more that we need to do and expand upon, but baby steps. So the first step was just to rebrand it so that we could do it in a clearer fashion. But please put April 22nd, 23rd in your calendar. And by God, it takes a village. I mean, look how many people are here between industry and every form of the medical professionals and advocacy groups and volunteers, board members. It's going to take us all, but it's going to take us all in a focused effort. And so our whole goal is to help focus everybody's effort and bring it together in a place where it'll have more impact. But I started with literally 1 employee when I came over here, and no office, and no files at the time. I was like, how have you guys been functioning? I don't know what's going on. Now, 3 years later, we have 15 people. We're located in Houston, Texas, close to the medical center, and they are the most amazing group of people. It's the first time in my entire life I got to handpick every single solitary person. If you think of what your dream team would be, that's what I have. And I am beyond, the only, other than Chris. I lost Chris. He was our leader. He was my support at every turn. And so I think some of you have been so kind to come and say, I'll step up. We'll help. We'll help bridge that gap, because he leaves a big gap, I can guarantee you. But I want you to know, if you haven't met them yet, please stop by and introduce yourselves. I want you to meet my team. I want them to stand up, which they're going to hate. Please stand up. So you know who they are. Find them, talk to them, meet them. They're only here to help you. So please use our services as much as you can. And that's it. We're here to help you. Just tell me how you need it and what you need, and I promise you we're going to do everything we can to make you proud. That's it. I'm out.
Gretchen, thank you so much. I think that was pretty much that perfect way to introduce this session on advocacy, funding, and patient experience. I'm Kirsten Green. I'm the chair of urology at the University of Virginia. I'm joined by my co-moderator.
Matt Campbell, MD Anderson Cancer Center.
I want to thank you so much for everything you said. That was awesome. We do have a quick pre-test pop quiz that we're going to put up. So everybody grab your little clickers on the table. You can see the pre-test question: which of the following are strategic goals of the Kidney Cancer Research Program? Now, maybe we gave you some answers already, but that's still fair. Increase understanding of the biology of kidney cancer, develop novel therapeutic strategies for the treatment of kidney cancer, improve patient care for kidney cancer, or number 4, all of the above. Please vote now. And Dr. Campbell is going to introduce our next speaker, who's joining us virtually.
right, so we're very excited to be joined by Dr. Teresa Miller. She's the program manager for the Kidney Cancer Research Program at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. And so we're very excited to learn more about the congressionally directed medical research programs. Thank you for joining us this morning. We need the audio to connect. No, we cannot hear you yet.
Not yet. We're just building the suspense.
The fun of Zoom.
We can't wait.
We may need to give Walt a microphone.
Was that Walt?
I don't think Aaron Rodgers is getting that job anymore.
So I think while we have this time, I think this is a very appropriate session, very excited to have it, certainly outside of my general wheelhouse. But when we think about the kidney cancer community as a whole, we think about our patients foremost, their caregivers, but their entire community that surrounds them, and that includes friends, that includes their business associates, it includes their houses of religion or spirituality, and then it's all of the people that they connect with, which includes the teams at the hospitals, the nurses, the schedulers, the physicians on the medical side, on the surgery side. Kidney cancer, I feel like, has more connections with different groups within the hospital than any other cancer that I see. And I think that this is a beautiful forum to discuss as we have patients that are advocating from their personal experience and caregivers advocating from their experience. And then you add in our partners in industry that are here today, our partners in Congress that advocate for us. And this really is a huge community effort to try to continue to move this field forward so that patients continue to have better and better options and don't feel alone in this fight. So very excited to host this.
Absolutely. I wonder while we wait if we could perhaps move on to the advocacy roundtable part, the legislative advocacy roundtable part, just to get that discussion going.
That'd be fine.
And not miss out on that opportunity.
We can get Bruce up.
Fantastic. And so,
All right, and so our panel has, we have 3 on our panel today and very excited. So we have joining us in person is Ryan Natsky, who is a kidney cancer survivor, KCA Patient and Caregiver Advisory Council Chair. He spent 15 years in healthcare advocacy, lives in Madison, Wisconsin, and is a huge also advocate for Ultimate Frisbee, which I think is fantastic.
I'm a professional sports team owner. I want to make sure it's clear.
And we also have joining us Bruce Hill. And Bruce Hill is a gentleman with kidney cancer. He's under the care of Dr. Joe Lee. He has served in the Navy. He served in the Navy for 6.5 years, and then has served in the reserves for 13 additional years, and we thank you for your service. He serves on a panel reviewing the KCRP proposals, and he goes to Washington, D.C. multiple times a year to advocate on behalf of others with kidney cancer. And we're lastly going to be,
I think
okay. And
that's our panel.
Perfect.
So can you all hear me?
Yes,
We
we can hear
can.
you.
Okay, good to
All
see
right,
you, Bruce.
good.
Good to see you, Bruce.
Your beard
one
is
worked.
coming across loud and strong.
Good.
I can get it kicked off, Bruce. Good to see you. And thanks, yeah. And so in my day job, aside from being 6 years out from my initial diagnosis, been clean since, scans next week, yay. So excited about that. Thank you to Dr. Abel at UW, who's fantastic, as well as a few consultations with Dr. Leibovich, who's been very generous. I feel like I'm in tremendously good hands. But in my day job, I'm a lobbyist, which keep the booing to a minimum, but I lobby for the good guys. I lobby for Marshall Clinic Health System, which is probably the largest truly rural integrated healthcare system in the country in rural northern central Wisconsin. And so I deal with lobbying on a day-to-day basis. And I think, if there's one thing to impart upon this group, I really think it's that building relationships with your Congress people is important, and they want to hear from you. And there are many ways to build those relationships that Bruce and I will talk about, and we'll talk about those experiences. But, we don't always give as much money as other groups, like the chiropractors. I mean, that's like built into their DNA. It's not built in the DNA of doctors, trust me. I try and get doctors to give all the time. That's not built into our thing. But attending political fundraisers or just asking a congressman to have coffee with you or to meet with them somewhere to talk about the work that you do, whether you're a doctor or a scientist or a researcher, they're going to be interested in that. They love hearing from researchers. They love with experts in any sort of issue. And they love that ability to have kind of go-to people that they can call on at any time on specific issues. And if you look at the whole group of people that we've got here and that we've got online, we've got a lot of important people that are covered within your districts. And so, somebody out here has a relationship that could ultimately be the one that cracks through from, instead of the $50 million that we're getting right now through the CDMRP program for kidney cancer research, it could be the difference to getting 60 or 70 or 100 million, depending upon who it is and what we've got to tell them. So I've got a few other things to throw in here, but Bruce, I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of say a few words.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so I was, just a little bit of my history. I was diagnosed in 2017, right radical nephrectomy, multiple mets to the lungs, and under Dr. Lee's care, I'm now over 3 years post any ipi-nivo treatment and NED. So off to, I think we're feeling pretty good about where we are right now. And I got involved pretty much right away with advocacy once I understood that there was a need for that in the patient community, and got hooked up actually through smartpatients.com. Some of you have probably heard of that, with the KCA and KCAN with Brian Lewis, working into advocacy on Capitol Hill. And really just have enjoyed that experience, and it really does make a difference. The people that you meet with in these congressional offices, sometimes it's the actual representative, very rarely is it the senator, but the staffers that are there, and they're young, right? They're mostly quite young staffers, but they know the ins and outs of congressional funding, of the way that money is allocated, and where their support needs to be. And when you can tell your story as a patient, and just recent, in the last year or so now, or year and a half, we've had physicians along with us, physicians and researchers. And that's just been terrific. And to be able to say to a congressional staffer or representative, this doctor here is in your state, and funding is going to his organization, his research facility in your state, and is driving economic strength in the city or state that he's in, really carries a lot of weight. So it's been great to be there as a patient and talk to these representatives, and then have a lot of you along with us really just makes a big difference. So the last time we were in person, of course, was in 2020. We've done a lot of virtual discussions with representatives over the last year and a half plus. But it was nice to go in person as well, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon.
Yeah, and I think those DC visits where, we all fly in, those are great. Everybody throws on the T-shirts, and there's power in numbers. But we all know you're tremendously busy. I know this from just trying to get somebody to come from Marshfield down to Madison to testify on important legislation is challenging. You have very busy schedules. There's also meeting in district or hopping on a Zoom call are certainly possibilities now. I mean, obviously now the virtual option is one that's out there. But meeting with people in their district can sometimes be more powerful than, you don't have to go to DC to meet with your representative. You can meet with them in your hometown. Invite them to your facility. See where, they love doing tours, so have them tour through your section and the care that you provide in your cancer center, something along those lines. Or if you're working on research, show them your lab. They really love this stuff if you can get them in there. And we're here that if you ever have an idea or want to do something like this, reach out to KCA. We will help facilitate, set anything up. So if you have the idea, we'll help make it happen. You just got to carry it out. But we're happy to do that. One thing I would add and I know that, a lot of people here were stats and science and all that kind of good stuff people. And that's important if you can get into concise kind of sound bites that are understandable. But as the small lettered slides work, that doesn't work in DC. It's like 3 bullet points, 5th grade level, and that's kind of what you got to do. They're a mile wide, an inch thin, and so you always have to remember that one good anecdote is much better than a lot of great statistics. It's just the reality of the situation. And so while not wanting to play too much just fully on emotion, that great story is really what can drive the narrative and ultimately get success in what we're trying to angle for legislatively.
That's fantastic. There's oftentimes where patients will come into the office and they will ask, how can I personally get involved? And, I will recommend connecting through the KCA, but what would be your advice to really help the patient make that initial leap? Because that initial leap seems to be the springboard, but sometimes is the barrier to have people actually move forward with that advocacy.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. I think as a patient myself, that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges is you feel powerless at some point. People in this room help give us a little bit of control over something that feels completely uncontrollable. But a way that different people feel control of a situation in different ways. And one of the ways that they do it is they get involved in things like this. And so I do think that, if I was, you're given a lot of stuff when you get first diagnosed. But I think having materials from KCA as a place to go to for a whole host of things is a great resource. So frankly, I had, when I started, that I didn't have 6 years ago. I think now we've got it with the Just Diagnosed toolkit. We've got some different kind of advocacy items that are on our website that are much more intuitive and easier to use than we ever have. But encourage them to use these, because it really does, Bruce can talk to this too. I know Bruce has done some fundraising, I've done some fundraising. It helps you gain, like I said, it helps you gain control over something that feels very uncontrollable. Bruce, do you have experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, the KCA, as Gretchen referred to, it was not something that I even thought of going to, or when I went to the website, it wasn't much of anything back in 2017 when I was diagnosed. So certainly refer your patients to the KCA now. The Just Diagnosed Toolkit is terrific. And smartpatients.com is a great resource for the kidney cancer community. It is one of the strongest communities on that website, and the people are smart patients. They're not the types that will throw out these alternate treatment things or anything like that. It's very scientific, very medical based. From experience, which is great, but they also are the people that kind of generate this grassroots effort that has helped bring people to advocacy. And that's how I found it. And also from there, I got involved in the KCRP reviews as part of the CDMRP, which Dr. Miller will talk about soon. But it's just using that as a springboard, and then once you get into an advocacy group, then all of a sudden people say, "Oh, well, you want to get involved in this as well." So it starts to become sometimes a little overwhelming, but it's a great place or a springboard to start from. So I would say KCA, obviously their newly branded website and team has just been terrific, and then smartpatients.com.
We had one question here, how can we as pharmaceutical company advocacies lead better partners be better partners with patient advocacy organizations, which I think is a great question, and not just for pharmaceutical companies, but for any sort of other company or organization that wants to partner and be a part of this. And I think the idea is just to reach out, and I think that as a lobbyist, my mind is always, in every meeting, it's the optics and it's the, doing the political calculus of who should be in the room and who should be the face of any conversation. And depending upon who it is, there's a different role for who that is, and in someone it might be the patient, in somebody's district it might be the researcher, in someone's district it might be the doctor, in New Jersey it might be the pharmaceutical company. So I think just being a part of the team, and then we can utilize those resources however we can best utilize them is how we can work through that. And I think that's the importance of what Gretchen mentioned with one voice and working with these other organizations. The first thing I do when working on any issue is you find your allies. You figure out who's against you and figure out who's against you, or with you and who's against you. And then from there you build your coalition and you figure out how invested people are, and you go out and you find champions, and you build your kind of program on whatever your goal is. And so, let us know that you're on the same team, and we'll use you.
Are there any questions or comments from the audience? I think we see somebody right there.
Yeah. Hey, Joe Lee. So I've had the very good fortune of actually participating in some of the advocacy events really through the KCA, giving me that opportunity to meet with congresspeople and senators and their staffers. And I think that it really is a lack on our side, on the research community, in which we don't really make that strong of a push for these advocacy sort of efforts. And I think that our goals are so aligned in terms of, and the potential impact that you can have by doing this work. I really do think that we should really consider this as a part of advancing the research in terms of treating and curing kidney cancer. The times in which I've done this in person, I've also done this virtually, it's been a great experience. Not only does it allow you to connect with people who are directly affected by the disease, but it also gives you the opportunity to connect with other people who may not fully understand the impact that this disease has on people. For the longest period of time, when we talk about kidney cancer, the amount of funding per life year lost, we're really among the lowest of all the malignancies. And I think based off of a lot of the efforts of the KCA, all the patient advocate organization, Kidney Can, Brian Lewis, like everyone working together, we've started to just correct some of that disparity in terms of the amount of funding available for the number of life years lost. But there's still, we're still at the bottom for that. And I think that, for all of us focus on this research, it really is very important for us to, try to get involved in, letting people who can help make those decisions know how important this is. So, thank you.
That's a great comment, and there's an old saying in lobbying, and specifically contract lobbying, that puppies don't need lobbyists. But you know what? We're the puppies. We're selling curing cancer. I mean, we're doing the Lord's work, literally. We're doing the good stuff, and so, but they're not going to be able to help us out if we're not telling the story to them and asking them and telling them what we need in order to do a better job of it, which is why developing those relationships and telling them there isn't any group out there opposing cancer research, not that I know of right now. And so, get out there, and you've got a receptive audience. We just got to tell the story.
Yeah, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but the staffers' reaction when the physician researchers talk about a project that was funded by the money that we're coming in to ask for it's phenomenal, because they make the connection. They say, oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that the money is being used for good purposes, and they get excited about hearing what you guys are doing in the research field with the money that they're trying to allocate to increase research funding. In the past 5 years, we've gone from being a line item under the subtype of other cancers to its own line item with a $50 million, well, hopefully soon to get approved, $50 million funding line for next year. So it's just been a great journey just over the last few years.
Yeah, making it tangible is really important. I mean, where you can say this money, one, from a purely political standpoint, this is $1 million grant that's coming into your district for research. That's something that they're going to want to be, wildly aware of. They might want to do a press release on it. They're going to be a champion for you and the work that you're doing then. And then in the future, they're going to be more receptive to it when they see, I allocated X and we did Y, and that's something they can talk about then. I mean, if you give them something they can brag about, then they're going to want to do more of that. For a congressman to say that they help cure cancer, that's not a bad campaign slogan, right? And so, help them out.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. We'd like to try to see if it's possible to get Dr. Miller up and running again, if we're able to fix the audio solution.
Maybe if our audiovisual colleagues would give us a thumbs up if it's possible. Looks like a thumbs up. Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Greetings, Dr. Miller.
Oh, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
It works. Welcome. The floor is yours.
I'm so excited. So I saw that you previously flashed the questions, and so that'll be answered at the end of the talk. So we can move on from this introductory slide. Thank you. Great. So I'm going to give you some background on the congressionally directed medical research programs. You might all be familiar with the organization by now, but in case you aren't, I just want to give you an overview so that you can understand who we are, and that's primarily because I'm placed in this section this morning to talk about the important role of the stakeholders in getting the program established and the continuation of the program, what you've been able to do. So congressional special interests and DoD programs that are managed and supported by the CDMRP, focus on advancements in military medicine, as well as on public health benefits. Although our research programs are directed by Congress, the CDMRP is responsible for determining the appropriate research funding strategies for each of our programs and managing the review and selection process. In order to achieve this, the CDMRP follows an established grants management cycle, partnering with multiple public and private stakeholders that include the military, research scientists, clinicians, disease survivors, consumers, and policymakers. And because of this, we can oversee the resulting awards throughout their period of performance. The CDMRP also supports the management of other DoD research portfolios and projects as needed. While our individual programs are unique in their focus, all CDMRP programs share the common goal of advancing research that will lead to healthcare solutions such as disease prevention or cures, improvements in patient care and survival, and breakthrough technologies and resources for clinical benefit. So if you see the slide, we have a list on the left which shows our current programs for fiscal year 21. Which we just wrapped up at the end of September. So we're actually now into fiscal year 22. But you can see we have over 30 programs, and with the total funding of over $1.5 billion. In the center, the partnerships that I just mentioned that are key to the success of the organization. And on your right-hand side, for your reference, our program cycle that is used by the majority, if not all of our programs, and can be adapted as needed for the specific needs of the program. So next slide, please. So what are the hallmarks of the congressionally directed medical research programs? We have several key hallmarks who make us what we are. And those hallmarks of the CDMR programs include the fact that all research funds are specifically targeted by Congress and added to the DoD budget on a yearly basis. The CDMRP specifically targets research according to each program area and funds high impact, high risk, and high gain projects that other agencies may not venture to fund. It is important to note that the CDMRP programs fund the full pipeline of research development from basic science through clinical trials as appropriate to the state of the science for each of those programs. The CDMRP follows what we call a two-tier review application process that was recommended by the National Academy of Medicine. We do not have any standing peer review panels. We make sure to rotate out about 30% of the panelists each year to get new insight, innovative review on the applications so that we don't have the same people looking at the applications every year. We want to bring in new investigators into the review process as well. Consumers, which we define as individuals living with the disease or the injury or condition, or in some cases, their caregivers participate throughout every level of our programs and participate throughout the yearly program cycle. Each program's vision is adapted yearly and award mechanisms are changed as needed to meet the current needs of the research community. The CDMRP does not use a pay line, and this is very important. The applications that we receive the highest scientific, we review them based on scientific merit, and we're looking at those that have the highest scientific scores, but that does not necessarily mean that you'll be automatically funded if you receive the highest score. Applications are recommended for funding based on both their scientific merit and how well they address the program priorities or criteria. Next slide, please. So I want to go back to the consumers. We have had several consumers or patients just talk about their role in advocacy. And what I want to emphasize here is that consumer involvement is a hallmark of our organization, just from the very beginning. Our organization was actually established based on the advocacy efforts of breast cancer survivors and patients. And because of their efforts, we got initial funding for the organization, and that allowed the organization to then grow and expand by the advocacy efforts of patients for the various diseases that we now represent with our various programs, such as breast and prostate, of course, kidney now, multiple sclerosis, lupus, et cetera. So it is because of your efforts that we see the various programs rise and our segue into the CDMRP. The inclusion of patients, survivors, and family members or caregivers go out through our processes, as I mentioned before. Consumers serve as full voting members on nearly all of our CDMRP peer and programmatic review panels. Consumers are invited to participate on review panels based on their involvement in their advocacy organizations, outreach, or support organizations, the armed forces, and their personal experience or disease or condition. So we also make sure that not only civilian patient advocates are involved, but military patient advocates are involved in our processes. Consumers provide a unique perspective. They lend a sense of urgency to the review process, and I've seen it in action where you may have had two competing applications, both very strong, but the actual impact for the patient community was higher in one than the other, and the consumer spoke to that, and that might have ended up making the difference in an application being recommended for funding. The patient or consumer ensures that there is a human dimension to the targeted disease or disorder or injury, and plays a role in the investment strategy and the ultimate research focus of our programs. Next slide, please. I'm moving over to more specifically kidney cancer, our kidney cancer research program, and the slide just provides a at a glance or overview. As you're well aware, we started in fiscal year 17 with initial appropriation of $10 million. And each year we've been fortunate enough to receive additional funding. And again, that is because of efforts of stakeholders that have gone to their congressional representatives and talked about the need for funding in this arena that has been rather underfunded for some time. And we see that we're starting to make strides in this area. And we never know from year to year if we're going to get funding. So when we do receive funding, we make sure that we are targeting it to the most critical needs within that research and clinical space. So in addition to the funding appropriations that you can see that we've received year to year, for FY21, we've received $50 million. We have already received all our applications for fiscal year 21, and we're actually completing the review process for those applications and should be able to let the research community know who has been selected or recommended by funding in the very early part of next year in 2022. So by hopefully the end of February, very beginning of March, people will learn of the funding recommendations. So in addition to the funding that we've received, a total of $135 million over that 5-year period of time, we've received over almost 900 applications through fiscal year 20. We haven't included in the the FY21 numbers yet, and then we will soon update those numbers. We've made a total of 142 awards through fiscal year 20. So what is the vision of our organization? The vision is stated simply. It is to eliminate kidney cancer through collaboration and discovery. And how do we go about that? That is through our mission statement, and that is to promote rigorous, innovative, high-impact research in kidney cancer for the benefit of our service members, veterans, and the American public. So the thing to remember, we are under the DOD. We are an Army agency. And so we are looking at the interests of our service members, but the solutions that we find for our service members also benefit their beneficiaries and the American public as a whole. So although it is a DOD organization, it is a benefit to the full general public. The images that you see at the bottom of the slide on the right, it just shows some of the publications and the communication materials that we try to put out to the community to make them aware of what we're supporting in terms of our investments in the various scientific research areas. And so also just some of our initiatives that we put into our program book communications, our annual report pages, our glitch sheets, our strategic plan statement. So we put out a lot of information for the community so that you can go back to your own constituents and keep them informed of what we're doing. Next slide, please. This is my last slide in terms of content, but you also need to be aware that we can, as I mentioned in the first slide, that we can shape the program's priorities as needed on a yearly basis. And so last February, February 2021, when we had our vision setting meeting, we did make some modifications to our overarching strategic goals. We tweaked some language. I didn't put in all the sub-bullets for our strategic goals, but we fleshed those out so that the scientific and clinical community could know what we want to see in terms of applications that come into us. But to state, we have 4 overarching goals, and those are to increase the understanding of biology of kidney cancer, develop novel therapeutic strategies for the treatment of kidney cancer. By developing those strategies, we are going to improve patient care for kidney cancer. And we're also going to grow the field, which is critically needed in terms of developing that research capacity in terms of individuals as well as resources, grow the field and increase collaborations in the area of kidney cancer. And so with those overarching goals, the funding opportunities that we offer should also align with those goals. Now, they can vary a little bit by year to year. So many of you are aware that we offered a clinical consortium to bring together multiple institutions to try to expedite the testing of potential therapeutics that can go into that clinical treatment space. We also offered a Academy of Kidney Cancer Investigators mechanism, which was presented to you yesterday by Dr. Rini. And so we have, I believe, 6 investigators currently within that academy, and we'll be bringing in more when we do our next programmatic meetings to determine who will be the next academy members. And in terms of the consortium, we have our current site set, but we will have future offerings of the consortium. So as you can see here, we have a concept award, which tests those very novel and serendipitous ideas to try to understand the biology of kidney cancer. We also include in that our Ideal Development Award, which is trying to get at understanding those fundamentals about the disease. We have different options for early career investigators and established investigators. We also have options for early detection studies and for population science and prevention studies. We have that translational space where we have the Translational Research Partnership Award, where we're partnering a clinician and a scientist that hopefully are moving something novel from the bench to the bedside, or something that a clinician may have noticed in the clinic, but now needs to go back and figure out what is going on there. So is that going back and forth? But ultimately, we are hoping to move that into potential treatments for patients. We're offering for the first time for FY21 a clinical trial award, and we're hoping that some of those clinical trial applications are leveraging to partner with the consortium so that that we can just jump ahead in terms of getting those novel treatments out there. We've offering for the second time a clinical research nurse development award. And why would you want to offer that, some might say? And that's because we want to have clinical research nurses or clinical trial nurses that have that specialization in kidney cancer, which is very critical. As I mentioned before, the Academy of Kidney Cancer Investigators bringing in new investigators into the academy, and just starting at the beginning of that career development pipeline, bringing in postdoctoral and clinical fellows to provide them research experiences in kidney cancer so that they can make a commitment to move along that track in kidney cancer research. So with that, I can answer the question that was posed to you initially, which are the following are the strategic goals of the Kidney Cancer Research Program. I think you were provided just 3, but we actually have the 4 goals, which I spoke to. Thank you for putting that up. Is it increase understanding of biology of kidney cancer? 2, develop novel therapeutic strategies for the treatment of kidney cancer. 3, improve patient care for kidney cancer. And I'm going to include the 4th, grow the field and increase collaborations in the area of kidney cancer. Or 5, all of the above. And I think you all can pretty well figure that out, is 5, all of the above.
Excellent. Dr. Miller, thank you so much for giving us a concrete roadmap to funding, and I want to thank our advocates for really giving us tangible ways for all of us to get involved in kidney cancer research, advocacy, and funding. We are going to have a little break now, and we're all going to reconvene at 10:40 for the Andrew Novick Award Lecture. I want to thank all of our speakers so much today. This was a really inspirational session, and you guys did a fantastic job. So let's give a round of applause, and let's all take a break.